many, 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 many notes. That backing track wants to keep playing. Hey folks, how you doing? Nick Jennison. I am your host for the evening. It's the Monday Guitar Show. Welcome on board. It is the first Monday back after Guitar Summit. So if I'm feeling a little bit hoarse, that is why. Voice has kind of come back a little bit nammy. It was a silent show, so I wasn't sure if we were going to keep the voice. The voice has left us. I've left my voice in the beautiful city of Mannheim. But welcome on board if you're a new viewer. It is great to have you. If you're one of our returning streamers, it is fantastic to have you. We're not going to waste too much time now that everybody is in the chat. Today, we are hanging out with Dave Simpson. You guys know Dave Simpson. Guitar player, songwriter, frontman for the band Red Giant. Got a new album coming very soon. 2 new singles. We're going to talk about all that sort of stuff. Really interesting dude with a fabulous collection of gear, which of course we're going to talk about too. Some really interesting pieces. We've been hanging out off camera and we think this is going to be something that you're really going to enjoy. So we're going to be asking Dave some questions. We'll bring him on stream in just a moment. If you have questions, we'll be taking those throughout the stream. So we're not doing our usual thing where like the last 10 minutes is the Q&A. We'll just do it all the way through. So if you've got a question, drop them in the comments. We would love to hear them. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about Red Giant, there are links down below in the description where you can go and check out all of their stuff, including tour dates for the upcoming however long. We also have links to the current 2 singles, the latest of which is Why, which we'll be chatting about. If you haven't listened to it already, you owe it to yourself to do so. And also, if you have questions about things like John Frusciante, for example, maybe now is the time to ask. Because I know you guys have asked me about Frusciante stuff before and I've kind of batted it away because I'm definitely not an expert on this subject. So if anybody's got Frusciante related questions, Dave is your man too for a variety of reasons. So let's get into the meat of today's stream in just a second, but first we're going to say some very quick hellos. First in the house is Sacred Godslayer, our Italian shred correspondent. It's great to have you. Marcin is in the house. Response Audio is tuning in. Hope you're having a great Monday. I am in fact having a great Monday. I was asleep on the couch about 2 hours prior to doing this because I was knackered coming back from Mannheim. It's been great though, it's real good. Timothy Appling is in the house, says, hey Nick, Dave, and fellow guitarists around the globe. Sacred, Marcin, and Response are really early. They were really early, but they're always really early. They're just like first in the house. I think they were in like months before we got rolling today, but even still. Helmet Strap is in with a great question. We're going to start your question up. We're going to pose this to Dave a little bit later, but if you guys have questions, we'd love to hear from them. Foghorn is in the house with questions about Satch's new amp. Interesting stuff. We'll be getting on that. Anyone heard Satch's new amp, The Dragon? Wonder why he gave up the JVM. I've not heard it, but if anybody's got any insights on this, we'd love to hear from you. We'll maybe address that too, because we're going to chat about some gear. Ergo Hog's eating, and we can forgive that, because I like food too, so that's all right. You can catch it in the replay. If you're wondering, by the way, if you want to catch any of this stuff, it will be available on YouTube after this stream is live, so you can go check it all out on there. Kim the Big Boss is in the house. I'm assuming he's had a safe flight home. Kim caught the earlier flight because, you know, he's a sensible man and we're not, so we got in really, really late, but it's worth it because the show was great. Crank and Tom's tuning in. Mike Seedorf is here. Steve Ford is here. David Peterson is here. We're going to have some fun with Crazy Dave tonight. Do you know, I don't think that's a slur. I think that's apt. He's warming up backstage. You're in for some good stuff, let me tell you. Cameraman James is tuning in. Franz is here. Mark McNish. Kerry Lewington. I do apologise. I am terrible at reading usernames. For the longest time, I thought Timothy Appling's name was Timothy Appalling, and I thought it was just a really good punk name. Our friend Sabareno is tuning in from Mexico. It was great to have you on board. John North is here. Blame YouTube made this hard to find. Let's rage at the algorithm. Pete Osgood says, hi from Aycliffe, around the corner from me. God's country. Anyway, folks, a reminder, if you have questions, just pose them to us in the comments. We'll put them to Dave as they come in. We're going to be choosing the best ones because I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch. In the meantime, let's take a second and say hello to our guest for the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, folks, it's Dave Simpson. Dave, how you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm okay, mate. Really, really good. I feel like all the chat that we had off camera before this rolled, we should have saved it, but because we touched on some really great stuff, but you guys will never know, right? It's like one of these things where there's like a mythical first take of an album that was never recorded, but who knows? Maybe we'll get it right second time. So, Dave, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. You have been a busy boy. in the musical sense. We got some really exciting tunes coming from Red Giant. I nearly said Red Dragon because I'm reading about Satch's Dragon, but that's Jakey Lee's band. But from the guys in Red Giant, we'll talk more about the band's path and all that stuff, and also maybe some questions about where you got the name from. I have some kind of pet theories, but I'm sure you can let us know. But first of all, tell us a little bit about the singles, about the album, when we can hear the full album. Talk to us a little bit about Why, which is the current single. Give us the rundown.
So the album's coming out on the 18th of October, so not long now. Thank the music lords, because it's been painful waiting. If it was up to me, it'd be like, as soon as we finish recording it and mixing it and mastering it, it's like, have it. But no, you have to do the PR campaign, which is fair enough. I get it. But yeah, so it's coming out on the 18th. It's one of the most proudest moments of my musical life. This album. It's one of those albums where I was just like you listen to it, you scratch your head and go, is it really me, or have you just replaced my guitar parts with somebody better? And did I actually write that, and did we actually do that in the studio? So yeah, it's really, really good, and it's really, really special to us, and hopefully it'll be special to people as well. The latest single, Why, is again, is one of those songs that is probably the most meaningful song I've ever written, maybe will ever write, hopefully not, but at this point in time, I'm always very against myself. Like, Dave, you write really good stuff. No, I'm not. I don't. Anyway, yeah. So Why is just kind of it's an autobiographical song. I had a really, really bad time at school with bullying and whatnot. So Why talks from that perspective of the person who's getting constantly pushed down and bullied and destroyed, and basically you just don't really know what to do, and not being very good at kind of talking or anything like that kind of thing. It's like music and the guitar was always that vehicle for me to express myself, because I'm rubbish at it. So Why really does that, and same with Monsters as well. Monsters I wrote in lockdown because I was frustrated with all the crap we were being fed that turned out to be lies. And I just wrote it one day where I was just angry at everything, and just kind of the whole idea of being locked away in a house. Everyone was experiencing the same thing. It was weird, and so yeah, I just felt weird about it and put that out. And yeah, it's crazy really. And they've been received extraordinarily well. Again, being very self-deprecating, I'm always this song's rubbish, and this song's even worse, and this song's even worse than that one. So to have them out there now and to be kind of so well received and kind of enjoyed by lots of people, it's crazy, really. It's I can't comprehend it, because again, my brain doesn't work that way.
I think that's the nature of the artist. A lot of people say the same thing, where it's the kind of a shared experience that folks who make music have, is this sense of dissatisfaction with your own work. And I think it's what a lot of people say drives them to, I guess, to produce better and better work as you go forward, or at least to try. To pursue the greatness. But I think you're absolutely right when you're saying, these shared experiences that a lot of people have. I mean, I guess a lot of folks all around the world will have experienced exactly the same thing, where you turn to music either as something where maybe you find yourself as a bit of a social outcast or whatever, or as a method of catharsis. I can't speak these things, but I can write them. So is that a theme that kind of runs throughout the album in that case, or are there other themes that you're exploring?
No, I mean, people ask me quite a lot, what tip can you give me about to getting into songwriting? And I always tell people is write what you know. Write your experiences, because I'll bet you £1 million that everything you've been through, a million other people have been through, and like you say, there is a catharsis in doing that, and there's also it's a way of reaching out to other people, and I really like that. I like the idea of helping people, especially through music. That's really important. So it's one of those things, and this album is just absolutely flooded with it. There's only, I was about to say, I think there's only one song that isn't kind of like an autobiographical song, but I actually don't think there is one. I think they're all, yeah, they all kind of like cover the kind of like the like there's mental health troubles, there's relationship breakups, and issues with like higher ups and stuff like that, and yeah, bullying and general just kind of like life issues, and I really was. It's really important for me to cover those subjects because, again, having struggled with that horribleness, still struggling with all that, it's important for me to get that kind of get that out there as much as I can, really.
No, I'm totally with you, man. And I think the beauty of doing it through music is that you can, it can still be universal. It can be something that people can read their own meaning into. Even if it has specific meaning for you, the artist, people can relate their own life experiences to that. And, you know, even if not, the music is great. You know, the music is really great. And it's an interesting one because there are a lot of sounds in there. Now, you're a very diverse guy. You know, you like and play so much stuff, but perhaps there are folks who maybe have kind of a narrow view of the thing that you do. Oh, Dave does the blues rock thing, or Dave's the Frusciante guy, or whatever. But especially on Why, like I'm hearing a lot of the really great like 90s bands, and I don't mean like the American 90s bands that we all love, but a lot of great British 90s bands going on in there. Is there like what were you listening to while you were writing this stuff in terms of, you know, what influenced the musical side of the songwriting?
It's funny because I've had a lot of these songs for a long time, and I can kind of like when I go through the album, I can go, oh, that's this, that, and the other. Why, for instance, is Oasis. At the time when I was kind of like finalizing the order of like the final thing of like this is how Why is going to be, I was listening to Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds first album a lot and Be Here Now a lot, and I've gone into a lot of detail with this before, but like Oasis is the only band that I can listen to in this day and age that makes me feel like I would when I was a kid, because of all the horrible trauma I went through at school. I have memories of being a kid, but I don't remember how it felt. And when I listened to Oasis, because I grew up in the 90s listening to Oasis, I was an Oasis fan. Yeah, sorry, Team Oasis, not Blur. And, like, you know, I remember listening to Nebworth live on the radio with my brother, and we taped it on a cassette tape and stuff like that, and got like the fan sticker. And when I was writing Why, because of what Oasis mean to me and the way their music sounds and what it does to me, I kept saying to myself, what would Noel do with the song? So initially it was like this big kind of like power chordy kind of like thing, and I was like, it's not the right emotion. So I came up with those kind of like those Oasis kind of sus chord kind of things. Well, seventh sus chord. Sometimes there's seventh sus chord.
Yeah, depends what's going on underneath. You know, it's like what are you going to put on the low end of the chord? I'm glad you said that, because I didn't want to bring the Oasis comparison up immediately, because it's kind of it's very a la mode, you know, like Oasis are on everybody's lips right now for obvious reasons. You know, but I mean, I have the same experience. I mean, I think we're probably a similar age, you know, and I remember the same. I was an Oasis fan in the 90s. I was angried out of them by, you know, sort of not by anything that Noel actually ever said or anything like this, but there was lots of discourse in the guitar press at the time of, oh, well, you shouldn't want to be a very good guitar player because Noel Gallagher only plays pentatonic scales. And you go, well, that's not true. Yeah. But at the time, I'm like, no, God damn it, I like George Lynch, and I want to learn this. So, but revisiting that stuff, it has that effect on you. It brings you immediately back to to being a young man in the 90s in the UK, which is a very specific experience. If people were there, you'll know. But it also brings me back to the early stages of learning the guitar. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about your journey into the guitar.
So the guitar came along at the perfect time of my life. After school, I didn't have anything. I didn't have any, I'd come out with no GCSEs because of everything and stuff. So I had really kind of nowhere to go. And my sister had started playing guitar. And I remember hearing her playing with my dad one night. Like, my dad plays multiple instruments, and he was playing accordion that night. And my sister was just strumming these chords. And I saw them playing together, and I was like, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I said to her, I was like, can you teach me something on the guitar? And she was like, yeah. And she taught me, the obligatory smoke on the water on the low string, like the 0-3-5. And I literally took a guitar, and I think I was literally playing that riff for about 4 hours in my bedroom, going, this feels fantastic. And it just kind of stemmed from there, really. And I kind of did it off and on for a year. I wasn't really kind of doing much. I had certain mental issues at the time that were getting in the way. And then when I was 16, on my 16th birthday, my dad bought me my first guitar, and which I've still got. And
what is it, before we get lost on that?
Yeah, it's a Washburn Maverick series guitar in Cherry Burst, and it's
nice.
It's a 3/4 scale, and it's literally... You couldn't have picked a better guitar to learn on. I remember at the time this guy was trying to sell us an Encore Strat, and I was kind of playing around with my very, very minimal ability to play Green Basket Case by Green Day really badly. And I didn't like the way it felt. And my dad goes, "Oh, what about this one over here? He found it on the second-hand rail." And I just saw it, and apparently, and my dad said, he goes, "What do you think of that one?" And I just went, "Yes." That was that.
Yeah, this is the guitar for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying, so you got your first guitar on your 16th birthday. Then what?
It just went from there, really. I mean, I spent years. I mean, the first two bands I learned albums. I learned Green Day and The Offspring, back to back. I learned Dookie. I learned Nimrod. I had a couple of other albums, a punk, and then I was Conspiracy of One, Smash, and what's the other one called? Another one which I can't remember the name of. And I learned those albums front to back. I learned every song, and I was just basically playing that. And then Slash appeared, and the first time I saw Slash, he was doing the Godfather theme on a Use Your Illusions VHS video that a friend of mine had on this gold top Les Paul, and the sound and the way he played was just And then I watched me Slash, and then John Frusciante had kind of come along before that, but then kind of Slash came along and kind of I wanted to play Les Paul really low with distortion, do the thingy, and then a Top of the Pop special came on with the Chili Peppers touring By the Way, and they played a load of songs, and that was it. From that point on, I was sorry Slash. John Frusciante took top spot. And I was just I remember watching that. I mean, I recorded it on VHS video, and I just remember watching that thingy, and I was just I couldn't even. I was too scared. It's you're too scared to blink. I don't want to miss anything of what's happening, and that was it really. And it took me to Jimi Hendrix and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question. Is because I had a similar experience. For me, Slash was very early in. Purely because I was at my pal's house and I was very young, and I hadn't really heard guitar music. Because guitar music there was an undercurrent of it, but there wasn't a huge amount of it doing the rounds in UK. Certainly in the pop sphere at the time, a lot of it was there was some really terrible dance music out at the time. And this is not to say this music didn't exist. There was a lot of guitar music, but for me, you didn't know where to access it. But I was around at my pal's house, and we just started dabbling with guitars. And his sister, who was a few years older than us, was playing Appetite for Destruction on a cassette in her room. And I heard it, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I waited for her to go to the bathroom. And I went into the bedroom. It was my first time, 12 years old. This is what a nerd we guitar players are, but I went in the first time sneaking into a girl's bedroom, and I did it to steal the cassette, and I ran home and like, this is it. He swears on one of the songs, and there's guitars and they're amazing, and but it became this kind of backwards gateway through to all these great players from the 80s, 70s, 60s, and that's Frusciante was I'm guessing your gateway, like you say, into Hendrix and into all these other players that he was influenced by. How did you even discover that stuff? Because there wasn't really a great deal of information out there at the time.
No, again, it's weird to think really of like, no YouTube. The only thing you got were guitar magazines and occasionally things on telly if you were lucky. I mean, I still remember like the 4 channels. Still old now, like before Channel 5 even came along.
Yeah,
and like I just remember like John Frusciante was. I remember the first time I heard him was. We went round to somebody's house. Me and my friends went round to this person's house, and they had Kerrang TV on. And by the way, music video was on. And I don't know what it was, but something just went into my ear and just went, whoa, what is that? I've never heard anything like that. And again, deep into my Slash phase, it's kind of weird. And it really made my ears prick up. And I remember like hearing it was in the charts. And again, I did the thing where you listen to the top 50 and you put the cassette tape in and you press record to get that song. So I don't know where it was in the charts, and I recorded it. And I remember trying to figure out By the Way, and I couldn't distinguish between what was guitar and what was bass because it's like weird. But yeah, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And like I say, I then after kind of like hearing that kind of, that kind of Jimi Hendrix house, I remember playing it and this guy goes, oh, that sounds like Jimi Hendrix. No idea who he was. Didn't know who. There's no one around to tell me who Jimi Hendrix was.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Who's Jimi Hendrix?" And he showed me his little wing, and I was like, "What's that?" Like, this insane thing.
But I mean, that's an interesting thing though, because for me, and I think for a lot of my contemporaries, a lot of us weren't really, I guess maybe weren't ready for that at the time that it was presented to us. I mean, you go through these stages of exploring these great players, and maybe if you are into the Slash phase, I guess this probably speaks to your temperament as a musician, but a lot of folks will maybe listen to the Frusciante thing or the even the Hendrix thing and go, well, that's not as loud and impressive and raucous as the Slash thing, so I don't want to know. But yeah, it's real interesting stuff. And Kerrang TV, man, like happy memories. So if you're feeling old, we're both old. Nick Harrison's in the chat. He's saying he remembers 3 channels. So but yeah, man. And we've got some rumors coming in as well, right? Response Audio is saying this is we don't know if this is true, but he's saying the print version of Guitar Player magazine is being phased out this autumn. Whether that's true, who knows? But I've heard rumors. It's a fast moving world. But we're going to take some questions from the audience real quick because we've got some real good stuff coming in. And then we'll chat more because I've got loads of stuff that I want to ask you. But first, we've got a lot of love in the comments. Be Kind and Cool says, hi, Davey. John North says, I've followed Dave for years and he just keeps getting better and better. The best is still to come. We've got a lot of agreement in the comments. I'm going to take this one from Pete Osgood, who is asking, when you're writing songs, do you do it all on the guitar or keyboard or something else?
It's all guitar. Well, it's weird actually. Invariably, I write everything on electric guitar, but when I was finalising the 10 songs for the new album, I did something I've never done, which was go through every song on an acoustic guitar and find the key that works for my voice, find the key that works best for the song on an acoustic guitar. Never done that before, and I will always do it from this point on. Like no matter what I do, if I'm finishing a song, I go to the acoustic now, which again is something I never thought I'd do because I'm like, no, acoustic, it doesn't have wah and distortion.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things. But I literally just remember I was struggling with a song called it's called The Dark of Me on the new album, and I was struggling to find a key for it, and I was just sat downstairs, and my acoustic was kind of going, and I was kind of ignoring it. And I was like, go on then. And I put the strap down and picked it up. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, and then I went back and did all the songs, and I was like, that was that was better. Like that was better than like trying to do it on electric guitar. I don't know why that is, but I've heard a lot of people say that, and I initially heard that idea from Noel Gallagher again. Noel coming back into the thing, but he does everything pretty much on an acoustic guitar, and I was just like, fine, let's give it a go, and lo and behold, it worked, and I still write a lot of songs. I write all the songs pretty 90% of the time on electric, but there have been a few songs. Recently, I wrote my first ever song on piano. We just randomly came out at like 11:30 at night, where I was going to bed and my brain just goes, "You need to play piano, Dave." And I'm like, "I don't play piano." No, you do. And I just sat down. And this song came out, and I was like, "Okay."
Man. It happens sometimes though, don't you? Like inspiration strikes in weird places. Maybe we've all had that thing. Those of us that write songs where you dream a song and the whole song is there, and then you wake up in the morning, it's gone.
Yeah.
But it was great, and we'll never know. So if you don't pursue that, that could have been gone the next morning. But I actually do want to touch on the vocal thing, because you're absolutely right when you're saying this is me speaking as a producer more than as a singer guitar player. Finding the spot where the song works for the vocal is it's a crucial step to making the song vibe, because the vocal is the thing that folks who aren't guitar players will latch onto. And even then, if the vocal is speaking and it's in the right space where it works for your voice, it emotes and it impacts people in a way that maybe it wouldn't if you were in a weird spot. But this is a really unusual thing, like you say, to do for guitar players, because especially in power trios, we write in the key that feels good for the solo. So on that then, just talking about the vocals thing, like, so how did you wind up being a singer? Was this always something that you did? Did you grow up in a household where everybody sung, or was this like a necessity thing because you were the guitar player and guitar player is the one who sings, or?
Yeah, it came out of necessity more than anything. It was kind of like one of those. I started off as a reluctant singer, but I started to, about a couple of years ago, about 2012, I really started to enjoy it. And I then never practiced it, enjoyed it, just kind of like winged it. It's like, yeah, it'd be fine. And it wasn't until like maybe the last few years where I've really started to focus in on like singing. Like really 2020 was when I really started. And it was kind of one of those things of like, I don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of auditioning singers. I wanted to be able to be self-contained. I also had kind of fallen in love with the idea of being able to kind of like take a guitar and play guitar and sing. The band I was in at the time, which would have been about 2006, I was just doing backing vocals. And the idea of actually singing and playing songs, especially songs that you write, really started to appeal to me then. I wrote a lot of songs for that band. And it was one of those things that, like, after I was thrown out of that band, I started up my own, and I was just like, I'm gonna be the singer. Like, it took a long time to get comfortable with it, and also being a frontman is kind of like when you first do it, it's a very novel experience. But it's really fun, and I really enjoy it now. And a lot of people have said, like, you ever thought of getting a singer? And it's like, well, no. And another reason for that being as well is like my songs are about my past. I mean, I know some people can listen to it and relate to their past as well, but I sing it from my perspective because that's all I've got. And I always think, like, what, like the song "Why," for instance, is my story, and I'm like thinking, why would I want somebody else to sing my story? It doesn't make sense.
100%. You're absolutely right. And you think, would it impact the audience in the same way if it was someone else singing, and would they, while people will definitely be able to inhabit these songs in their own way because they are so universal, it's something when this is somebody telling you their lived experience through song. 100% agree, and also the voice sounds great. Like the performances are tremendous, and as you say, like having listened to the growth of yourself musically, or from Dave Simpson Trio through to the current iteration with Red Giant, you do see a huge like improvement curve in the voice, and it's sounding just killer. So why get a friggin' singer? Like, what's the point? You know, you might land Ronnie James Dio, but who cares? You know, like you got it. It's working. It sounds great, and it's one less person to have to get in a van. You know, you can tour in a Renault Scenic and not have to get a splitter. So we got some other great questions coming in. I'm gonna tap some of these, but we've got some more love in the comments that we'll like to see. I'm going to throw this one out here. Seas of Neptune Jimmy says, tell Dave he's an absolute hero and will continue to be so. And we've got one from Jonathan saying, Monsters was really good, but I feel like Dave has really established himself as a true artist with Why. So this song's speaking to people, man. And again, I feel like the vocal performance and the honesty there is a huge part of it. We're going to take a little bit of a left turn on this, and we're going to start talking about guitar players again that you like. But here is a great question from Sacred Godslayer. So we do try and help people become better guitar players in these streams, and I feel like this is one of the ones where we're going to get some gold here. So I have some thoughts. These guys all know my thoughts, so we're keen to know your thoughts. Sacred Godslayer is saying, question for both. How do you tackle studying loose guitarists? I'm going through old stuff, and for example, Jimmy Page and 60s, 70s guitarists for me are incredibly harder than shredders. You got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it comes from a fact of, and again, contentious this is going to be, but with shred guitar, it's to a point, it can be, it's like a script. You do this, you do this, you do this. Guitarists like Jimmy Page, Rory Gallagher, Richie Blackmore, they didn't have a script. They went on stage that night going, I don't know what I'm going to play tonight. You know, whereas if you know, I know people like Steve Vai have improvisation and stuff like that, but he's not going to randomly go off on one in For the Love of God. You know, he's going to play the actual riff and stick somewhat to the melodies of that song, but there is going to be improvisational bits, but it's going to be a certain kind of way. Whereas I always remember there's a quote about Richie Blackmore. Somebody asked him about Jimi Hendrix playing wrong notes. Like he's saying, "Oh, Jimi Hendrix, he would always play these wrong notes." And Richie Blackmore said, I can't remember the quote exactly. I'm going to paraphrase it, but he was basically saying Jimmy wasn't playing the wrong notes. He was just trying to find that one perfect one. Like you know, it might take. And he said, yeah, it might take 100. You might have to play 100 notes to get that one perfect note. And that to me is kind of like important. And again, I do love the free style of these guitarists where they could stretch and they didn't know where it was going. And they, especially in like certain bands, like you see Rory Gallagher, like he would turn to the drummer and just point and go, "It's your time to solo now." And the bass player, "It's your time to solo." And it's like on the spot. And I don't think a lot of people do that anymore. It's a lot more kind of like, I've been practicing this. This is what I do. And again, in my opinion, it means absolutely nothing to anybody but me. But like, and it's trying to like force certain things in. Whereas I think those guys back then weren't trying to like force things into technically be showy. They were trying to. They're pushing that musical boundary. People like Eddie Van Halen, for instance, like you know, where he could take things, and Eddie's not. It's showing off, but it's not showing off. You know, it's like, wow, how is he doing that kind of thing? But to Eddie, it wasn't showing off. It was just how he played. And again, Eddie was always one of those guitarists that you never quite knew what was coming next.
Yeah. And
I like that. Yeah, I like it. I don't like music when you're like, it's going to do this in a minute, and it's done it. And the 70s rock thing, especially like prog rock, like, you know, King Crimson and Jeff Rotal and stuff like that, you never knew quite where it was going, and that kind of scary nature, I think, is really cool. But again, it makes it very hard to replicate because they didn't know what they were doing. So how can you?
No, 100%. It's and you know we'll get a little more into that in a second. But you're hitting on some I guess some really important points here. But absolutely some very important points. One thing that's kind of striking me here, which is really interesting, is you know, you have bands from such different walks of life and such different routes into artistry that all ended up with this same thing that we're talking about. So you mentioned Rory Gallagher, who, you know, was like working class guy playing bars in and across the Republic of and Northern Ireland during a very hairy time in human history. We were lucky enough to chat to Jerry McAvoy about this, I think a couple of years ago, and he was really, he said all the same things you're saying here, right? But you also have guys like, you know, like Yes and Jennison and these bands that kind of, you know, they became a thing in public school, which for our American viewers is private school. UK is a bit weird like that. So I was going to say, hey, do you think maybe this is out of the tradition of, you know, going and playing in bars and having to hold an audience? But I don't know if it is. I think I've kind of thought myself out of that. But in terms of kind of capturing the magic of these players then, so what do you think is the trick with this? So, because, you know, I remember, you know, we did a Peter Green tech session for Guitar Interactive, which is available on Lick Library, by the way. If you guys are not Lick Library members, plug. Go click. There are no links down below, but you can go to licklibrary.com and you can go and sign up and find that. But one of the references that I looked at when I was piecing this together was I looked at a lot of Dave's lessons about Peter Green. I'm like, Dave knows Peter Green. I'll go watch his videos. And there was some really, you know, really on the nose points that I hadn't thought of. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, that is what he's doing. So what do you think is the secret to capturing the magic of these players and capturing the vibe rather than just the notes?
You have to put yourself in their kind of shoes, and I think you have to try and like think like them. Like Peter, for instance, is a good example actually, because Peter is, I don't know any guitarist that's ever been that could go from whisper to a scream quite like Peter Green. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did.
Hey.
But he could do this thing, and Peter would like a lot of Peter's kind of blues are in G minor, and he would do this kind of like second, those kind of things, and like it blows my mind of like how he could kind of go. That is outrageous to me, and I can't do it. I don't know anybody who can. It drives me mental because you listen to him doing it on like a song like "Worried Dream" or "Got a Good Mind to Give Up Living," and his blues playing and his tone with that Les Paul and into a Fender or an Orange amp. And I just don't get it. So the only way I can kind of like do it, and the same goes for like John Frusciante or Jimi Hendrix or this and the other, is I try and think, again, coming back to why with Noel Gallagher, what would they do? Yeah. So, and also helping, like studying their playing and trying to understand what are you doing at that point and why are you doing it. It's really hard with Peter because there's literally no footage of him playing. It's just audio, which is really weird because there's so much footage of other bands around that time, but like I can count on one hand footage of Peter. And I do think you just have to kind of go, right, well, what would he do at this point? And like Peter Green would let it breathe. Jimi Hendrix wouldn't necessarily let it breathe. Jimmy would be a bit more, you know, whereas Peter would be a bit like, you know, like off and on. Whereas Jimmy was a bit more like Buddy Guy, whereas Peter's more B.B. King. But even B.B. King didn't have that level of dynamic that Peter had, which is crazy. You can see why B.B. King said what he said. But I do think you have to put yourself in the mindset of that player going, and also improvisation is such an important skill to have as a player on any instrument. I believe, especially guitar, that ability to know your way around this thing. So any given moment you can kind of go, yeah, I can just wing something out, and just try and kind of do it. And again, trying to channel other players. You know, what would John Frusciante do in a blues or whatever? You have to kind of put yourself in their mindset, and studying players, I think, is the key to that. And going, right, well, John does this a lot, Peter does this a lot. Jimmy does this a lot, because every guitar player has habits. I don't care who you are. Every guitar player will get stuck back into that thing of like, this is what I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. But
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing, really.
No, I think you're absolutely right. To, like I say, to examine the habits, like I say, to try and embody the player in that sense. And I guess it all starts with kind of listening and listening beyond, what note is this? What scale is this? And like, totally hear you. And now we're going to get into some gear, because gear is important, right? So something you talked about the Peter thing. So I tried my best to capture that stuff. It's really hard to do. Totally agree. I found a few little things kind of helped. I think people underestimate the importance of the reverb.
Yes.
In Peter's tone, as something that you can lay into dynamically and still have that sustain. But of course, can we do it on a Boss Katana? So you are famously the Boss Katana supremacist, right? Tell us about the Boss Katana and why you love it so much.
It's like the amp to end all amps to me. It's just insane. It's like I've never found, like, from day dot with it as well, because I was skeptical when people were saying about like Boss Katana, it's amazing when it came out. I was like, yeah, whatever, okay, whatever. And I remember I bought the 50-watt, the Mark 1 50-watt for this guy in the local town, and I thought, let's give it a go. I actually live streamed me playing through it for the first time, and it was like a bomb went off. All of a sudden, I was like, does it do this? It does. Does it do that? It does. It does that as well. And everything I've ever thrown at the guitar going, I wonder if it'll do this. It always comes back and goes, got you. Yeah. And it's like one of those things of like, I always say it in my reviews when I review like a new Boss. I'm like, I don't think Boss really realised that they absolutely decimated the amp world, in my opinion. Because they are like, it's like one of those kind of like moments of, if you could have one amp, it would be a Boss Katana.
Yeah, it is the people's amp, because it's so affordable. It's so, you can transport them. I mean, you've done a good few more of these than I have, but we've both done the thing on Andertons where we kind of come out and they go like, you've got X amount of money, you've got like £6 to go and make a rig, and I tried so hard not to pick a katana, and the amp I picked was great, but I'm like, I should have got a katana. Should have listened to Dave, man. Should have got a katana. And we're surrounded by nice amps. You've got some lovely gear set behind you. Like, and you're an orange guy, but you have all this lovely kit. I mean, actually, do me a favor. Tell me what you have got behind you, because I'm trying to eyeball it and see what we have.
It's all solid state, so
interesting. The Marshall is solid state too.
It is, yeah. It's actually a Marshall MG 100. If you believe the internet, it's the worst Marshall that's ever been made. In my opinion, it's the best Marshall that's ever been made. And
I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it is a real sleeper amp. Like, people just don't appreciate how great that amp is. No. That was my first, like, I had an MG80. It was my first real amp. So okay, interesting. Now, we need to unpack what's going on there. So, like, tell me about why solid state.
Consistency more than anything. I don't hate valve amps. Some people have this preconceived idea because I use solid state. You must hate valve amps. No, I love valve amps. In all honesty, I think the most important amp in the world that's ever been is a valve amp, and it's the Marshall Plexi. I know people will say, yeah, but it's based on the basement. Yeah, it is, but it's totally separate entity. The Plexi is not a basement, and the basement is not a Plexi.
Yeah, the iPhone's based on a BlackBerry, so you go, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and I personally think that's the most important amp that's been ever made and will be ever made for the thing of musical history, because of what it did. People like Jimi Hendrix, Richie Blackmore, Eddie Van Halen, so on and so forth. And everyone used modded plexis in the 80s. Like, there was everyone goes, oh, it's the 80s, it's the era of the Jason 800. But then you look at like people like Mick Mars and J.K. Lee, and they've all got just hot rodded plexis. Didn't particularly want to use the 800s. But yes, solid state was it came along because it's all I could afford when I was first starting playing guitar. Valve amps were out of the question, too expensive. If they die, you ain't getting it repaired. You ain't getting it. So I grew up playing for a Marshall MG, and the Marshall MG was that I had 2 amps previously. That I had a PD Rage 158 Trans Tube, which was my first ever amp, 15 watt, and then I got a Carlsberg GLX 100 combo, which was just mid range. That's all it did, mid range. Yeah. And then I got my Marshall MG, and it was the first time I was like, "Oh, that sounds like I want." I felt happy all of a sudden. I was content. And about a couple of years after, I've used the MG for about 3 or some years, and then I got a Marshall small box Plexi. And because I love the Plexi, hence why that's in a Plexi head box.
Yeah, that was the confusion, man. I'm looking at it going, I don't recognize that knob layout. Like, what is that? Interesting.
Because again, to me, the Plexi is the most gorgeous looking amp head ever made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the Marshall, and that was it. But I got the Plexi, and I immediately discovered its, to me, annoyances. If I was out gigging and the power went low, the amp got dark. No matter what I did, it wouldn't get brighter. If the power got high, it would go bright, and there's nothing to do. If it was right, it would sound amazing, and it was just like, oh. But I remember one gig that did it for me was where I was playing, and I was at a pub gig, and somebody must put £1 in the bandit. Took a bit of ampage out of the pub, and the amp just went. It was like someone had turned off all the high end and just boosted all the bass. And I went back to the amp and I just flat the EQ out. I turned all the bass off and basically turned presence, treble, and mid all the way up, and it still sounded like it was at the bottom of the sea. And eventually it came back, but everything was on 10, so it came back with and it was like scary moment. But from that point on, from that gig, I was like, I'm going back to my solid state because I never had that issue, and I've never had that issue since. When I turn my amps on, they sound like they did yesterday. With the Plexi, sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't, and I think it a lot to do with my mind being autistic. I like consistency. I'm not very good with kind of change of things. I like things a certain way, and my sound is really important to me because if it doesn't sound the way I want, I'm not very happy. And
we can all relate to that. That is a universal thing with guitar players.
Indeed. And that's how I was talking about solid state. Was like, turn the amp on, sounds good. Turn it off, turn it on the next day, sounds good. And I've never had anybody come up to me and complain about my sound live.
Yeah.
Gigging with that.
Until they find out what you're playing through. Yeah. You tell them and suddenly they hate it. They go, it's a really strange experience, man. Like I've had similar things, where you play a piece of gear and it's not what people think it is, and they go, "Whoa, that I can't have enjoyed that. That's not." Yeah. I'm so confused. While we're on the subject of gear, by the way, so bless you, I made you put down the '60s Strat and pick up this one because I saw it on a stream the other day, and I'm like, right, we're going to talk about this. So you're holding the non-Ingve non-Strat, right? Yeah. So tell us about this, and we're going to talk about the strings in a second too, because this is part of the message of this little set of streams that I've been doing for the last couple of years. But I want to know about the guitar.
So this is a guitar I bought a year or 2 years ago, and it's a fake Ingve Malmsteen Strat. Being an Ingve fan, I love Ingve, and I wanted a scalloped fret guitar. I just wanted one. And I used to have one, and I stupidly sold it, and I was like, since then I was like, what did I do that for? And then this one came up for sale really, really cheap. And so I got it, and it was good from the get-go, even with the original pickups and original frets and all that lot. And then a friend of mine called Mike goes, I can make it better. And yeah, he did. He refretted it with railway lines, new nut, new pickups, new tremolo, new electrics, I think, and just made it way better. And I got it back, and it was like, oh, this is great. I finally got that kind of thingy. And then I thought, let's go silly, let's put gauge 7s on it, because I had a pack of those Billy Gibbons strings around, and I was like, I'm never going to put these on any of the guitar. And I thought, I know where they can go. So it's a shred machine. Not that I can play style very well anymore.
We've heard you, man. We've heard it. You know, you don't need to be modest around here, man. We've heard it. But like the sevens thing is really interesting. So what do you normally use? Like what's your regular set?
Yeah, 10 to 46. Although
Yeah,
I'm thinking 9.
Sorry, so one more time. You're thinking about nines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like nines, man. Like I'm a light strings kind of guy. I have tens on this guitar because I have to top wrap it because of my own. This is not a Maybach thing, but I put a Fishman Power Bridge on this, and it's great. But the saddle is very low relative to the height of the bridge, so as opposed to a regular Tune-o-matic. So I have to top wrap it, so it's got tens. But we both do the gear review thing. Everybody's guitar has tens on, so if you can't go on tens, you're out of a job. So and I'm sure you've done the same thing with me as me, where you've had like either a run of reviews or you maybe you're traveling to a trade show or something, and you go, oh, I better spend a month with tens to get this sorted. But so how different is your experience being with the sevens? Like for the playability, for the tone, and is this something you're just gonna do from now on, or is it limited to this guitar, do you think?
It's limited to this guitar at this point in time, but I do like it. It's just getting used to not doing like crazy bends and just absolutely outrageous. I mean, this guitar is, even though the action is really, really high, like Ingve says, and all these guys have the action's really high. It has to be though, I think, because one thing I did find with the sevens is I got less output on this guitar. So the pickups are a lot higher. I normally sync my pickups a lot, but on this one I had to bring them up because I got less output. But it's the idea of barely touching. I could blow on this guitar and do a sweep picking lick. I don't have to start. And it actually does come alive. You just
wow,
active if you just blow on. But it's different because you've got to barely press, and I think that's quite a good skill. You don't have to you don't have to manhandle the guitar. I do that, and I still like to be able to do that sometimes, especially if it's kind of like an anger day or you're just feeling a bit frustrated and you just want to lay into something. You can't do that on this guitar because you just get the bend that tune. But I like it. It's fun, and it's a giggle to kind of be able to go woo, 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 all this kind of fast stuff and just go, yeah, that was great. Oh, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do it. Look, the hands are working. It's I totally feel you, man. And it's for me again. I always say for the longest time, man. Like guitar is not a strength contest. I compete in strength sports. Like this is because I'm rubbish at everything athletic, but I needed a hobby, so I decided picking up heavy objects. That's for me. And you go like this is not what this is, man. Like we're playing music here and having that delicacy that you get from the big frets, the big action, the scallop and the light strings. I think it's an important thing for guitarists to experience. And dear viewer, I bet you didn't know that they were sevens. I bet you were listening to those Hendrix examples and all that sort of business and going, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Can you tell? So like that and the modeler thing, not the modeler thing, sorry, rather this talk of modelers in the comments, and maybe we all need solid state amps. Maybe that's the deal. We're all seeking this consistency that all the modelers give us, and maybe we need Marshall MGs. Who knows? Do you have the 60 Strat handy? Because I'd love to do a show and tell on that, because you were telling me about this guitar just before we rolled.
Yeah, this thing is one of the best guitars I've ever played. I've played a lot of guitars, but very few of... Again, some people could pick this up and go, God, that's terrible. But to me, it was like, when I first played it, it was like, oh! And the heavens opened and, all was good, And luckily, with support from my YouTube community, I was able to get it. They helped me actually buy this thing. Because 60s Strats aren't... Well,
they're big money, man.
Now.
Yeah.
But yeah, this wasn't as expensive as it is now, which is weird. But it's just, as soon as I touched this guitar, it was like, it's weird. I'm the second owner of this guitar. It was a one owner Strat. I'm the second person to ever own this guitar from its birth in 1962, and that's weird because the amount of vintage Strats I've played where I go, it's like, oh yeah, 8 people owned this before, and it's had this change and that change. This has had a lot changed, and I've done a lot to it as well to make it work for me. I'm not precious per se about it, but the neck on it, when you're playing it, it's just like outrageous. I used it on the new album as well. I used it on overdubs, and one song in particular called "Was It All My Fault?" It's all this guitar. I think there's a Les Paul in there as well to double it, but I needed that kind of classic Strat thing. That thing, and this is just that. It just is. Yeah,
you can hear it, man. There's a, and it's not the bright, like super modern position 2/4 thing that we all associate with the Strat thing. There's a wholesomeness about a really great 60 Strat. Jonathan, our editor, has one, and I'm very envious of it. We brought one in from a pal of mine who is sadly passed earlier this year. But we were doing a comparison with the Silver Sky, which is off camera just now, and they're just special, man. Strats from that era, they're just something about them. But that's a refin, right? So that's been done in black. You told me a story about how it came to be black.
Yeah, because it was Fiesta Red, as you can see. Which way do I turn it? That way.
Oh, that way.
It's still Fiesta Red. It's stripped on top, though, so it's not underneath, sadly, because otherwise black would be going. But it's not underneath it. It was stripped. They just didn't do the cavities. So the original owner, Malcolm, who owned this guitar, he bought it in 1963. And he was in the Navy at the time. And the first place this guitar went was Australia. He bought it. He had to get it on hire purchase. His dad helped him buy it. £15 a month, which was very expensive. I think it was £15 a month. They had to pay for it. Very expensive on hire purchase. And basically, got the guitar, shipped out, went to Australia with this. He accidentally left it outside a bar in Singapore. Like they were doing a gig off the boat. Yeah. But he said he doesn't know how it survived because he was on a Navy ship, getting it through like portholes and stuff. But over the years, the Fiesta Red faded to pink, as we all know they go, and it was just a bit ugly. And he was like, I don't want a pink guitar. And he actually put it away for 10 years. When he left the Navy, he put the guitar away for 10 years and didn't look at it, didn't play it. And then he got it back out again when their friend said, "Oh, you play guitar? Do you want to join my band?" And he was like, "I haven't played for years." And he was on the cusp of selling it for something like 25 quid. which is insane, but he decided, "No, I'll keep it," being his only guitar, and he gigged around the UK with it for absolutely decades, like through the 80s and the 90s with it. But he was like, and at the time the drummer was a guy who painted cars, and he just happened to mention to him, he brought it to a rehearsal, and the drummer was obsessed with this guitar. He was absolutely fell in love with it. But Malcolm goes, "Yeah, but I don't like the colour." He said, "I wanted a sunburst one, to be honest with you," which is strange because he was a Hank Marvin fan. He got the Hank Marvin guitar and didn't want the colour. Great. But this guy said, I can redo that any colour you want. What colour do you want there? Because I can do it in car paint." And he goes, "Oh, do it black." So 22 layers of car paint later, it's actually made the guitar a lot thicker.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. There's that. Now that is something that a pal of mine talks about, where he talks about the different finishes and the effect it has on the resonance of the guitar. We're not going to be like we're not going to get all Alex Jones about the wood. We're not going down that road, right? But because I have thoughts, I'm sure you do too, dear viewer. I'm sure you have three. But like one thing that he mentioned, a pal of mine is a telly, and he was told, an expert picks it up and plays it, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's not the most resonant telly in the world," and he was gutted. And the guy goes, "No, this is good because as a rock telly, if you're a country player, sell it, but if you're a rock player, you want that. And I'm wondering if maybe, sort of the finish is maybe having some impact to that. We can opine about that, I'm sure, but let's not get the Gearosphere angry at us. We're going to take a couple of quick fire questions because we are like running rapidly out of time. I would sit and do this all night if I could, but you've been super kind with your time, with your insights, Dave. I'm going to throw a couple of very quick things at you. First one from Jonathan is asking, what's Dave's favorite guitar solo of all time to listen to?
There's loads. It's hard to pick one, but if I was to pick one, it's Red Hot Chili Peppers, Scar Tissue. They did a live gig in Moscow in 1999 in Red Square, and they did some Scar Tissue. And the last solo that John does in that gig, it was the first solo that kind of really affected me and brought me to tears. I'd never experienced that before, and I don't know, there's something about it that just got me. And so if I was pushed and put a gun to my head and said, you can only pick one, that's the guitar solo. It's absolutely outrageous. It really is.
There you go. What year was that again? Sorry, that is in Moscow. Did you say in
99?
99. Go check it out, dear viewer. We'll love a bit of that. Okay, I'm gonna quickly throw two more at you very quickly. We'll make this swift so you can go and maybe, I don't know, do what you do of an evening. I'm going to eat is what I'm going to do because I'm always eating. Daryl Queen says, a question about the solid state amps. Do you approach your settings differently than you would with, I'm guessing he means with a valve amp or a digital amp?
No.
Nope.
It's always the same. No treble, which freaks people out. Sometimes no mid, no bass. It's always the same. I found it out very early that that's how I do my sound. I've got bright hands.
That's interesting you say that because on my Marshall MG, that's exactly what I would do. It's treble off. And don't be afraid to explore these crazy settings, folks. The amp has a range for a reason. I know I've seen Michael Schenker dial his amp. He does a very similar thing. Walter Trout is all mids. No, sorry, Robin Trower is all mids, no bass, no treble. They exist for a reason. You're not going to hurt it. It's fine. The amp will be fine. Okay, last one from Pete Osgood with regards pedals, saying, what pedals are on your pedal board and which pedal can you not do without? Don't say tuner, because
tuner. No, I can do without tuner because I use your ear for that. I'm actually trying to teach myself to be better tuning by ear. I go out my way now when I restring my guitar to go, right, let's tune it by ear and see how close I can get. Pedalboard wise, I've got quite a lot. I basically use distortions for everything. I don't really use overdrives, but I have like two old Marshall pedals, not the old ones, the silver box ones. I've got the Jackhammer and the Governor 2 Plus. The Governor 2 Plus is probably the pedal one of the pedals I couldn't do without. But I've got a wah-wah pedal, Boss DS2, which is like one of the best pedals ever made. Mel 9, Strymon Cloudburst because, soundscapes. Line 6 delay model because who doesn't have one end? And then the one pedal that I probably, if again, forced to it, that I couldn't live without, would be my Zoom G2.1U.
Interesting. And why is that?
Because it does everything I need to. If worst come to worst, I can do an entire gig with just that pedal.
There you go, man. Wise. And I think I bought all those pedals you're talking about. And I think I probably bought them the same time you bought them because they were around. You're in the UK. You go into a shop and you go, I need lots of gain. You want a Marshall Jackhammer, young man. And very underrated pedals. Like the reissues are out. The Shredmaster and the Governor, and they're all great. But I have a special place in my heart for that Governor too. I think it just really worked. For whatever reason, with the amps that were around when I was studying, when I was in college, the amps that they had, I don't know, they must have had the opposite curve to the Governor, because the Governor's very dark and like super thick. But if you're playing single coils, makes a lot of sense. Dave, it has been incredibly kind of you to sit and hang out and chat guitar-related nonsense with us. I've had a lovely time. Before we go, for you folks out there who are watching, Dave, tell us once again, in case people are just tuning in now, when they can expect the new album. Tell us about when and where they can come and see you. Album's October 18th, if I remember rightly, and it's going to be available on, I'm guessing, every platform. Can we get physicals?
You can indeed, yeah. We've got it on CD and vinyl, so you can get it on. You can pre-order it now off our website, redgiant.com.
Link is in the description.
Yep.
And as far as tour dates, when can we expect to see you and where?
We're only doing a handful of stuff. We're playing at Cornwall Rocks this coming Sunday. Guess where that is? And then the 18th of October is our album launch party, and that's a free gig we're putting on in Newark at a place called the Flying Circus. And it was really important for us to have the album launch as a free gig, not pay to get in. Like we wanted to be like, no, let's give something back, because we did a Kickstarter for this album, and without that Kickstarter, we wouldn't be here. So we wanted to be able to give something back. So yeah.
Yeah, no, man, that sounds killer. I'm happy that it's far enough away distance-wise, because I have my album launch party on the 18th of October as well. But we're a long way away, so it's fine. I don't think we're necessarily going to be competing for crowds. Although I would probably come if I weren't playing. But listen, Dave, thank you so much, everybody, guys. You know where to find us. If you are joining us for the first time, don't forget we do these streams live every Monday, where every once in a while we're looking to hang out with great guests like Mr. Dave Simpson. And if we're not, we hang out, we talk about the guitar, we've got a lovely community, we try and help you become a better guitar player. My name's Nick Jennison, this is the mighty Dave Simpson. We will see, or rather I will see you guys next week. Go check out all the links down below. It has been a gas. See you guys next week. Dave, thank you once again. It's been a joy.
No worries, thank you. Cheers.
Hi, my name's Nick Jennison, and it's my pleasure to announce that GI Plus, the exclusive lesson platform from Guitar Interactive Magazine, is moving to licklibrary.com. GI Plus features a whole host of the best players and educators in the world, bringing you exclusive lessons on everything from metal to blues to fusion and everything in between. Want to level up your shred chops? Check out How to Play Fast by Andy James. Or how about Sweep Picking with Rick Graham? Or maybe country's more your bag? Well, how about a full-length country guitar course from Andy Wood? Interested in learning how to play over changes? Well, members get access to hours of exclusive lessons from fusion maestro Tom Quayle. Or maybe you want your playing to sound more soulful? Well, who better than Chris Buck to show you how it's done? Members also get access to every lesson ever published in Guitar Interactive Magazine, including Michael Caswell's legendary Pro Concepts column. Or maybe you want to learn the secrets of the masters. Well, members get access to over 70 full-length tech sessions where our tutors painstakingly decode the styles of players like David Gilmour, Eddie Van Halen, John Petrucci, Larry Carlton, Slash, Tosin Abasi, Paul Gilbert, and many more. And you get all of this in addition to all of the amazing content on licklibrary.com, which includes note-for-note tuition of over 60 classic albums, weekly lesson uploads, a backing track library, and one-to-one player support. There has never been a better time to sign up than right now.